Hi everyone, welcome back to Hearing Weird. I was going to post an earplug review video this week, but then over the weekend I had a bit of a meltdown, and we're now on day 4, I think, of migraines, recovering from the meltdown. And I decided the meltdown is probably a more relevant and important topic to talk about than earplugs. So today's topic, the meltdown. So first, of course, what is the meltdown? The meltdown is when your brain gets so stressed out that it starts to try to soothe. But the problem is sometimes those soothing behaviors can be irrational, they can be ineffective, they can be embarrassing, or in the worst of cases, they can even be dangerous. So what can cause a meltdown? So really anything. In APD cases, it could be anything from people talking too fast, people talking too loud, too many sounds coming in at once. My meltdown was caused by someone talking to me too loud, too fast, and quickly changing topics, but I still felt the need to keep up in the conversation. So my brain couldn't keep up with the quickly changing topics. So next question, what does a meltdown look like? And that answer, it can vary depending on each person. So I took the liberty of asking around online and seeing how other people's meltdowns manifest. And I got a lot of different answers for a lot of different people. So some people said that they became mean or stubborn. Others said that they would yell or scream or cry. In the movies, a lot of time meltdowns are shown by people beating their heads against walls or hitting themselves in the head. For me as a child, my meltdowns were a lot of screaming and a lot of crying. And I know they were embarrassing for me, they were embarrassing for my family. They're very, very loud. The good thing is now I'm learning to sort of harness it a bit more, to sort of suppress those public behaviors. But the problem is if I suppress it rather than coping, it might stop the embarrassing public tantrum, but the recovery time is a lot longer, significantly longer if I try to suppress the meltdown rather than just let it happen. Which brings us to our next question. What does recovery look like? So for me, this is the hardest part. Especially if I try to suppress the meltdown, this is the hardest part. The quick description would be something like hangover meets depression. Now, I've only experienced depression like a few times in my life, and I only really remember the last time that I experienced it. So I do apologize if I get any of the symptoms wrong. But basically, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sleep. I don't want to talk. I don't want to go online. I don't want to watch TV. I want to do nothing. But the rational part of my brain says, this isn't going to help you feel better, just laying around like a lump on your bed. So I force myself to get up and to hang out with people or go shopping, get out of the house. But unlike a normal day where I'm just feeling sad, this doesn't help. Distracting myself doesn't help at all. And that's why I think it's more like depression, because no matter what I try to do, it doesn't seem to cheer me up or even really help me forget how I'm feeling. Also, for a few days after meltdowns, I'll have mini meltdowns throughout the day. Also, my brain feels fuzzy. I feel less aware of my surroundings. My APD symptoms are way worse. What used to be nearly half a sentence that I could understand easily, I can only understand a few words at a time. And this is where the hangover symptoms start to come in. I feel foggy, I feel fuzzy, I'm very sensitive to light and to sound, I get stomach aches. It's just incredibly miserable. And one thing that I really hate about the recovery process of a meltdown is people will stop and say, wow, you look awful today. And I do. I look awful during the recovery of a meltdown. But my only response can be like, yeah, a couple days ago, this guy was rude to me. And I say, I feel so incapable because it sounds like a really lame excuse. So what can I do about it? Now that's the hard part, right? So first, if you are engaging in meltdown behaviors that are dangerous to either you or others, you need to seek help about that. A professional can teach you how to use other behaviors, safe behaviors, to substitute for those destructive behaviors. Second is you need to start to recognize when you're having these feelings before you get to a meltdown point or a breaking point. You need to recognize the symptoms early and then actively disengage. This is where I screwed up over the weekend. I didn't recognize myself getting stressed early enough. When I was young, this was extremely difficult. I had a really, really hard time doing this. Now I do it okay, maybe. I've stopped having a ton of meltdowns. They only happen a couple times a year. And in situations like this past weekend, I was able to save myself any public kind of display. But there's still ramifications that come from this kind of incident. So this particular time, I gave the person I was talking to too much credit. I never questioned whether or not he was acting erratically. And so I kept trying to keep up with the conversation, despite I think he kept trying to throw me off. And so while I may have suppressed the stress enough to get through the conversation technically, what price did I pay for that kind of win? Like, was it worth it? I don't think so. So despite this person being someone that I'm extremely familiar with, I still should have questioned his motive earlier. And having questioned his motive earlier, I could have actively disengaged earlier and saved myself days of migraines. But clearly, this is still something I'm working on. But how do you all melt down? What do your meltdowns look like? How do you cope? How do you recognize those symptoms early so that way they don't become a problem later? Let's talk about it down below. And as always, if you like this video, click, share, subscribe. See you next week.